Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2026 continues. The future of work, meaning is the new money. Because meaning is simply the greatest motivational force on earth. But 68% of the global workforce is disengaged, leaving $9.6 trillion in productivity on the table every year. Gen Z, the canary in the coal mine, is exposing structural failures everyone else learned to ignore, rationalize, or endure. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and designing solutions that solve real problems. This podcast delivers boots-on-the-ground intelligence, real conversations with CEOs, fractional executives, coaches, and small and medium-sized business leaders navigating the same crisis, mitigating the talent hemorrhage before competitive viability disappears. We go beyond symptoms like engagement scores and wellness programs to focus on the structural failures beneath them. Frontline intelligence, actionable frameworks, hard truths. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Rich Kozak. Rich Kozak has spent 44 years doing one thing at the highest level, defining and launching brands that impact people's lives and the world. Rich Kozak is the founder and CEO of Rich Brands, a certified global branding consultant with partners worldwide and the co-author of the Amazon bestseller Cracking the Rich Code Volume 6. His next book, Impact-Driven Branding, lays out the how-to process he has refined across hundreds of industries and thousands of client engagements. Rich is not a marketeer in the traditional sense. He is what I would call a brand archaeologist. He goes in, listens deeply, and finds what is already true at the heart of an organization or person, and then builds the language that lets the truth do its work in the world. He believes branding at its highest level becomes something far more than a business strategy. He asks a question that stops people cold. When does branding become God's work? I have been looking forward to this conversation, and I am delighted to welcome Rich here this morning. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
Good morning, John. It's great to be here, and I've been looking forward to this as well. So let's get on with it. And thank you for acknowledging I'm not your normal run-of-the-mill branding guy.
I appreciate that. I'll start you off with my normal first question, and that is, tell me a little bit about yourself and some of the early influences in your life.
Wow. That's a fantastic question. Not unlike a question I ask in discovery with clients. So here goes. I would say some of the earliest influences in my life were very uplifting parents and teachers, mentors along the way who believed in me, allowed me to exercise my creativity, and didn't tell me, oh, don't do that. You're not good at that. I got to, well, okay, then do that. You want to play violin? Oh, you want to play on the tennis team? Oh, you want to go in the theater? You want to take math? That's good. You can do that. I was surrounded by uplifting, empowering parents, teachers, and mentors. So I think that baked into my character how I turned out now that my work is loved and I get to mine, M-I-N-E, people's authenticity, the impacts they clearly see making on others when they thrive at what they do. They clearly see those impacts. Sometimes they're already making them, but to play out language to define the brand they will become or they must become to make those impacts is something people don't, it makes them go like, what? Because they don't think of branding as coming from the heart. They think of it as being slapped on the outside. So my understanding of branding, to honor your question, things that shaped me. For 20 years, I helped run what you might call a high-tech ad agency, marketing communications and branding development firm. We had partners in 21 countries. When I resigned after almost 20 years and said I don't do branding anymore, but I was addicted to my job. I loved it and I was really good at it. I loved to share with people who run big companies that branding is not what they think it is. It's a process. It's steps.
Very
So
interesting.
share with an engineer who builds platforms in the North Sea that branding is the same thing. And they go, what? It's steps. Like if you leave steps out, it doesn't work out well. It's steps, and would show them the timeline and steps of brand development. It was revealing to them. And for the last 10 years, I'm literally beginning my 50th year of defining and languaging brands. I've been married for 49 years and 54 Valentine's Days, and I've been defining and languaging brands for 49 years, going on 50 years now. So, you know, a lot of little stuff of my own back in the day, 20 years at the agency, and for the last 10 years, individuals who are impact driven and they care more about making the impacts they know their work or their business, their calling can make on others' lives. And those others might be a type of person or a couple, it might be an industry, but whatever it is, through their gift, their work, their calling, their business, they can see impacts and they really want to make them. Those people. I've been doing that for 10 years, individuals. So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm talking to you, okay? I'm talking to you about the way you're perceived about your brand. And so in that time at the agency, through working with partners that had created this partnership, there was research procedures and there were ways to mine out the foundation of the brand by people that created it and then move it to another country where the laws are different or you know, business is different. And that country is the United States. I was on global brand teams in Europe and other places for those companies to come to the United States. So it became very clear that branding is a process and it's steps. And boy, is that a relief when you let it sink in. And I want it to be a relief to you listening to this right now. The book I'm finishing is called Impact Driven Branding. And it's not a book about branding. It's not like, you know, the priest and Princess Bride, you know, marry, and he's going to go on and on about marriage. It's not like, let's talk about branding. It's here are the steps. Do them. It's how to. It's called Impact Driven Branding, 7 Steps to Ensure Your Brand Impacts People's Lives and the World. I have been teaching it, coaching it, consulting it for the last 10 years with individuals, and I put it in a book to hand it to millions of entrepreneurs worldwide who know there's more. They want to make bigger impacts. They want to make broader impacts, but they're kind of stuck at the starting gate to that next level. And branding, when they think about branding, they don't trust it. They think it's kind of fakey. They don't want to wear a superhero costume that doesn't fit. You know the meaning, you know the feeling. And they realize it's not what they think it is. It's the perception they create in other people's minds by following the steps. And they don't leave anything out, and it always works. It's like, what? So it's a very happy place. And by doing that, your business is sharper. You know, if you have a consultancy or you're a speaker or you're an author or, you know, you're an expert, your business is more successful. You also create a platform that it makes it much easier to step into why you're really here, why the creator made you. And when your heart is saying you want to make impacts, that's, you're on the road.
And I was going to ask you to define for me in one sentence what a brand is.
Your brand is not what you think it is. It is a perception in the mind of your most important target audience whom you really want to impact, and you clearly see you can. Your brand is the perception in the mind of your most important target audiences That's what your brand is. So branding is those things you get to do to shape a consistent perception. If it's not consistent, you've messed it up. You've created distrust, not trust. It must be consistent across the board, but that's your brand as a perception. It's not what you say it is. It's not what you think it is. It's what they perceive. And
Okay.
the they is your most important people that you really care about impacting.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question as a follow-up, because I always like to deal with scenarios and examples. So without naming names, let's keep that aside, but give me an example of an individual now that you've worked with in the last few years in terms of developing, quote unquote, their perception or their branding. Let's start with this. What kind of business were they in? What maybe did they think their brand was? What kinds of things you did to sort of change their perspective? And what happened? What was the result of the work that you did with them? So that people can understand you started here, you had this, and it wound up here.
Beautiful. Well, let's take a couple examples. So a man hears me speak at a luncheon, comes up and says, I think you could help me. He was in Southern California where I live, and I said I'd come to the Brand Ranch, so he comes for lunch. He doesn't really say exactly what he does. He seems like he's talking around it, but he's in the financial services industry in some way. And he said, I just am not good at marketing, and I don't like the way the financial services industry trains people, and I want to do it differently. So he comes to my workshop. We do a 1-day workshop intensive. It resonates with him strongly, and he says, I want to do brand accelerator mastery. Let's go, the whole thing. So that's kind of a 7-day thing over a couple of months. On day 4, right in the middle of it, after, a month and a half, on day 4, he comes in and I said, Frank, I have rewritten your elevator speech, and I've named 3 books. And he goes, I'm not writing any books. I'm like, okay, let's not get into that. Do you want to hear the speech? Yeah. I guess so. You're at a conference. You have a name badge on Frank, a nice tie. Get in the elevator, and guy goes, hey, nice tie, Frank. What do you do? And you say, well, for years, I served as a financial advisor. But you know how many of those there are? And they both laugh and roll their eyes. I decided to serve people in a much better way, a much more significant way, particularly committed savers. And I've created my own company, a special company called Safe Savings Options, using your money's power. And today, I serve as a saver's wealth advocate. Does that help? What you just heard was about a minute of intangible brand promise language designed to reach the target who saves, puts aside, maybe they're an employee or maybe they're an entrepreneur, at least $100,000 a year, and it's in a savings account. They don't want to hand it to one of the big, stock market people because it might not come back. But they're frustrated and they don't know who to trust and whatever. And they hear that and they go, I gotta go, but can I have your card? The language that says what you do in a unique way and sets you apart and has baked into it an intangible brand promise is the most powerful first impression management that a brand can make. Frank then said, well, okay, tell me about the books. Well, the first book is entitled From Broke to Six Figures, Steps to Success in Business and Life. And it's about the mistakes you made and the decisions you made, how not to talk to people, what to really focus on. How do we not steward our savings future in the right ways? The stupid mistakes we made, the things you did that were, and Frank, if we're going to let them get to know you, we're going to put little videos in there so they can pull out their phone and it's going to say, this is a Frank spotlight on how not to talk to people. This is what you read in chapter 3, but here's what I want you to hear from my heart. And then they get to know your heart. Are you feeling me, Frank? Yeah. Okay, so that book published 5 years ago. The second book is called The Power to Live Your Life 7 things to not interrupt. The guy's a financial advisor. What's he writing a book like that for? 7 things to not interrupt, because he, in parallel, has been doing blueprint work. Oh, and he serves as a chap. When he came for lunch that day, he goes, "Oh, I'd love to talk more, but I got to go back to jail." And I'm like, what? Okay, so he serves as a chaplain in the local jail. He lives his faith that way. So I realized, wow, most people don't live their faith like that. So this is a big part of the brand. So the power to live your life, 7 things to not interrupt. It's a book that was just reviewed by Mo Rock from LA Tribune, and they're putting it up for an award. They say it should be on everybody's life bookshelf. And the 7 things are the common things that human beings do. And he did them, and he watches them. He sees it in the people in the jail. He sees it in the people whose lives he talks to about their financial situations. They interrupt their integrity because they took a job and they say, "Hey, this is the way we do it here. You don't do it that way, you delete." They interrupt a relationship that works. "Honey, I'm just going out with the boys again. You send the signal that there's something else that's more important. We do it, not stewarding your savings future, your mental well-being, your physical fitness. 7 things that are huge. Okay. And the third book was where his brand direction is really growing strategically. And the third book is called Doing Business with a Servant's Heart, subtitled The Name Above All Names. So he gets to step into the faith that drives him, that acts as a foundation for him. And there's a roadmap for the brand, but it was a blank piece of paper when we started. With 20 years of being a financial advisor trained to sell stuff. But now, his people find him. Huge difference. You'll never hear, unless I tell you who he is, you'll never hear of him because he's not famous. But defining and languaging the brand that he must become to make the impacts he clearly sees making, giving it unique language that transfers energy, and a first impression that makes people go, "Wow, I want that. What is that?" It's powerful. So there's one example. Another example, the one that came to mind is another man's. The guy comes to me, he goes, "Look, I lost my wife from lupus, and she was only 54. They're beautiful. We were wonderful." And I was angry because the doctor said partly it was because of the medicine she was taking. And I started taking ownership of my own health. And I've changed my health style, and I've looked into things that aren't just take a pill and fix, because that's Band-Aid medicine. So I've learned about stem cells and how our bodies after 40 don't make the stem cells in our blood that help us repair and rejuvenate. But there's nutraceuticals that do. And so I represented a company, but I also learned about brain training at Daniel Amen's. And we can have a younger brain as we age. Did you know that mushrooms that are hybrid mushrooms that are literally highly efficacious against cancers and stuff? And he's talking about all these little, non-traditional or alternative natural medical modalities. How do you bring that? It's like the guy it sounds like he's confused, like he doesn't know who he is. Today, he is the founder of the legacy brand, Mindful Longevity. Renew, rejuvenate, revitalize, holistic health mentoring that empowers lives. I get chills down my spine when I hear that because I want that. You didn't tell me anybody who's in their 50s, 60s, their parents are failing, they're taking care of them or they're gone, and they're starting to, forget where the car keys are, and they're like, "Oh, man," and they hear Mindful Longevity, experiencing a younger brain as you age, and you go, "What? I want that. What is that?" Right, longevity sounds good. Right. Okay, again, first impression management, unique language that transfers energy, saying what you do, what you're expert at in a way that no one else says it. So is there any competition? You answer the question. For an individual who sees impacts that he clearly knows he can make on other people's lives, but the gate's locked because he's creating confusion with all this language until he's not. Feel me? So today, people pay attention. He's got his own radio show. It's like he couldn't have done before. Sure. Of a woman who was born in, she just came to mind because she spoke at the Rise into Purpose summit that I ran last week. I ran the Rise into Purpose Summit, living a truly fulfilling life. And every speaker is living a truly fulfilling life by helping others live more truly fulfilling lives. So she was one of them, Dr. Susie Best. Let's call her Dr. Best. Dr. Best was born on an island, a woman of faith, made the decision to come to the United States, to come to the right college. You know, when you and I were talking before about matching a person's values with the values of an organization, kind of a Venn diagram overlap, and you're like, don't go there. She was looking for the right college fit for her faith. She found a college in Illinois. She comes to the United States to go to college. She gets enrolled in social service in the Chicago area. She's studying psychology. She eventually gets a doctorate of psychology. At 30, she's asked to run one of the largest nonprofits in Chicago at 30. And she's like, no. And they're like, no, you're the one. Phenomenal. Becomes an expert at the neuropsychology, the neuroscience of leadership. Today, she said, look, I'm going to be home for 4 days in April, because first I'm going to Chicago. I'm speaking to several hundred executives, several in the room, most of them are on Zoom, and we're going to shift the way they work with their teams. And you're like, what? She's the one. Powerful. And we're planning a whole series of books, the high-performing leader's best guide to living a thriving life. And there's all these chapters, and they turn into books. The 5 somethings of holistic wealth. It's like, holistic wealth. That sounds good. Yeah. So it's like the difference between the before and after is clarity. There is clarity in whom, and I'm going to speak to you listening, in whom you focus on. I know I really want to impact them, and I can clearly see the impact. Okay, there's one. Or give me another one. Oh, in this type of business, it doesn't have to be just one. You can have a handful. But by writing down whom and the impact you clearly see, you can define in language the brand that you get to become to make those impacts faster. You'll get to the money faster. You'll build a platform that makes it much easier to step into why you're really here. So the before and after always works because it begins with your heart.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, those are good examples of, taking what they had and call it repackaging or reformulating it into, as you said, this perception in the minds of others as to how they can help or fit into their lives or impact. That's a great word. Impact their lives.
Notice it's not trick. Notice it's not like, we have her wear a special kind of hat. It's none of that stuff.
No, and I agree with the word impact because it's interesting. In the title of my book, Throttle Up, I changed development to impact because people talk about leadership development, and I make a differentiation. I talk about leader development. Okay, I say leader development. To me, impact is leadership, practice, and action. And a lot of times people don't talk about the dividing line. And the dividing line for me goes like this. We give people information and knowledge. They go to leadership classes, they take leadership courses and all this kind of stuff. And that's great. But what's the conversion factor? Can they take what they've learned and convert it into action? That's different. That's leadership practice and action. That's actually moving the needle as opposed to studying the needle, if you will, more than anything else. Right. So I think in many respects that sort of is similar to what you're saying, is in the branding, one has got to be able to take their knowledge base, their information, background, experience, whatever, and then put it somehow into practice so that people can come away with it and say, I have things I can do in order to make a change in my own life. Any reflection on that?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And we're all like that. And it's a constant growth. The moment we stop growing, we start dying. And you mentioned before about vision. When you see what you want to create, when you perceive or envision what you know is valuable and how you can make an impact on someone else's life or on their business or on their company or on their industry. When you can see it, you can do it. So you start with vision, and there's pieces that you'll need along the way. And none of us have them all. I mean, a ton of books have been written on it. Probably one of the best one is Your Life, Your Legacy by Roger Hamilton. I read it when I was in my 50s, and it helped me understand that I'm not supposed to do everything myself. You know, that I'm made to do the things that I happen to be really natural at, and everybody else is supposed to help me by doing what they're natural at. And I was like, really? Yeah. So we gain skills, experience, wisdom. Hopefully we're wise enough to gain it, not just through our own mistakes, but vicariously through others. That's what training and mentors are all about, and coaches. So everybody who is really outstanding has coaches. That's one of the ways they get to be really outstanding. And brand development, leadership development, the work you do in Throttle Up, the work I do at Rich Brands, it helps people to move forward and grow and find the resources or muster them internally if they had them, so that they can move, impact the world they touch, the people whose lives they touch, in more significant ways, more successfully, more frequently. So absolutely, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the key, is what's going to change for people. You know, they follow my formula, they follow your formula, they follow other formulas. Can this make their lives better? Can they live a more productive, prosperous, and meaningful life at the end of it? You know, certainly, and brand, their process, as you call it, perspective in the minds of people. What does that do for someone, you know, who adopts it and says, yeah, I want to move down this road, guided by what you're in effect telling me?
It's easier.
Yeah.
Because people
Right.
respond to them more positively. Well, I'll put it this way. When you clearly define and language a brand so that it's consistent across the board and has unique language that transfers energy and has positive ongoing recognizability and it's congruent with the heart of the champion. Those four things, you get those four things because you clearly define and language the brand. So it's everything it says and does aligns with the impacts it wants to make. These are the things that happen. There's this list of things that people say that are in their way. We need better ways to say what we do. We don't know how to position ourselves to charge what we're worth. What kind of the content is really will get attention from our target audiences. How do we get the right people to come to our website? There's this list that is really common. And every one of those things either minimizes or goes away when you've clearly defined and language your brand so that everything you say and do aligns with those impacts. Otherwise, if you don't, there are 6 bad consequences, and you'll recognize them because we all experience them. Confusion. People don't do anything. You won't sell things. Misinformation. Oh, I thought you, but you don't get credit for what makes you outstanding. You waste a lot of money on marketing thinking the marketing doesn't work. It's the marketing that doesn't work. It's that you haven't clearly defined the language your brand. Competitors who happen to be better at it get ahead of you, and you lose time. And there's only so much time. Those are the 6 bad consequences, and you will get them all if you don't clearly define and language your brand. So that's what happens if you do, and it's what happens if you don't.
Yeah.
I can't make it clearer than that.
No, I think it's very clear. I think it's great. I think those markers have to be in the minds of people who struggle with clarifying their own brand or their own, you know, how do I, for example, want to be perceived in the minds of others? What, and again, I want to just talk just for
Thank you
just
for
for a
using
second.
that language. You're a very good student.
Well, I'm also a devotee of Don Miller's story brand technique. Start with the problem. What is the problem that people are struggling with? So I guess in a sense, and correct me here if I'm wrong, is within the context of the problem, the question becomes how does the brand how does the brand mate with or meld with the solution as as part of the solution of the problem? What do you think about that?
I think it's backwards. I
Oh,
think you start with, when you start with, if you have a desire to impact people's lives in a certain way, instead of starting with looking, say, well, what are all the problems out there? And you're trying to do that product need fit thing, well, it's fine. What is, oh, you know what? People don't know how to save money. I can teach them how to save money. But if that's not something in your heart that you really want to, you're now you're off on a road. You're one that way. But wait, we're all made by the same God with a purpose. And you've been born with unlimited power and gifts. When you listen to your heart and your heart goes, I know that I can make a difference there. I really would like, no matter what you're doing now, the jobs you have, or when you hear it and you follow that, that's the right way. That way will always turn out well, because what your heart tells you is what is closer to why you're here. So focus on the impacts you want to make, you're pulled to make, you're called to make, you see you can clearly make, and you really want to. And then there is no necessity to meld the problem with the brand. The brand is the vision you see, and you say to someone, I understand your situation. And their ears perk up and their heart opens, and you paint a picture after you say, here's what I see for you. You paint the picture you clearly see that includes the impacts that you can make. They might not even see them.
yeah.
But when you clearly paint that picture and it comes from you clearly see it, you're the one. You become the magnet.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. And
So for the back, it sounds like a slap in the face to.
no. I like it. It's one of the reasons why I started podcasting was I tell people all the time, I have learned more from podcasting than I'm sure any 25 guests who've ever listened to the podcast, because it has so informed me. And I've been blessed. You talk about being blessed. I've been blessed with conversations from people all over the world. I mean, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Romania, Australia, New Zealand, India, the UK, US. I've talked to people from all over the world trying to find the common issues that are germane to everyone in terms of, I'll just say it, more focused on work life than anything, less maybe on personal life, but certainly there's the spillover into personal life, but more on the work life. How do we make lives better for those people? I always tell people all the time, when I was my first job was a naval officer. And the first thing I learned as a naval officer was take care of your people and your people will take care of you. That's the first thing I learned as a naval officer. And it stood me in good stead. And the question has always been on my mind, how best, what are the things we can do today to take care of people so they take care of themselves and they take care of the leaders that are with them, because a lot of them are burning out. I mean, a lot of them have reached a point where they're just burned out. So they just can't take anymore because we keep putting more and more on their shoulders. And that's why I see leadership much more as a collaborative process than just one person standing at the top of the mountain and saying, here it is. So it's interesting to see. Go ahead.
Her best to be on your show. She and I had those conversations a lot because she's so skilled in the neuroscience of leadership. And when you do care about your people and the way you show it and the skill set that you have creates a whole different world. It takes the leader to a different level of success, and they know where they're weak. They just don't talk about where they're weak, but they know it, and they become strong, not only at work, but outside of work, like in their home family life. Often that's where they're weak, where they're cracks, but also with their teams and the way they can engage teams, and they have a mutually respectful and a supportive relationship. You get the future of work, looking for the common problems, common denominators worldwide. Here's one, okay? It is very common. People who are already successful, they could be employees at the top of a company. They could be entrepreneurs. They could be experts. They could be speakers. They could be coaches, but they're already successful. Thing is, here's the problem. This is what they say. I'm not done. I know I'm not done. See, they could be in their 50s or 60s. They could be in their 80s. I know I'm not done. Where do I go? Where does this go from? What do I do from here? How do I take it? That, not even know how to say it. One guy who comes from Alabama, and he said to me, dude, how do I get to that next level? It's not asking about skills. It's asking about process of being accepted. Many of them are, if you're in your 60s or 70s, it used to be people would write you off. Not anymore. Maybe some do, but we know wisdom is absolutely super valuable. And they know they're not done. They know they're not done helping people whose lives they can help, or impacting or changing companies, or doing whatever they do. How do they deliver that so that it goes to another level? People see them at another level and they bring them in, let them in. Oh, I think it's John. I think he's the one. And they let you in. If they don't perceive that you're the one, you don't get let in. And so that clear perception, evolving that perception so that they let you in to make those higher level impacts, to make that next level, that's really important. They don't know how to say that because nobody talks to them about evolving their brand. They would think evolving their brand sounds like fake stuff. It's not. It's evolving because they don't think a brand is the perception in the minds of their target audience. When you realize that's what it is, it all falls together, makes sense, and that there's a process, steps, that you don't leave any steps out. It makes a lot of sense. And when people watch it happen, they're all in. And it's just giving them access to who they really are. Yeah. That's the remarkable thing about it. People think of branding as fake. It doesn't have to be that way. And it shouldn't be that way. It's talked about that way by people who want to sell marketing services. That's the word.
I agree. I think everybody has to find what Joseph Campbell called their bliss. What is your bliss? What puts fizz in your soda? That kind of a thing. This is one of my favorite quotes is in 1987, Joseph Campbell, the great scholar of mythology, who studied all the world's belief systems, was featured, and you can still get it. Usually you see it around Christmas time, in a series called The Power of Myth. Joseph Campbell, the great scholar of mythology, Power of Myth. He was being interviewed by a journalist at that time, Bill Moyers, a very famous journalist, Bill Moyers. Yeah, Bill Moyers. And Bill Moyers asked him this question. He said, Joe, is it that we are, as humans, searching for the meaning of life? And Campbell said, no. It's futile to search for the meaning of life. We are searching for the experience of being alive. And I've taken that and took it one step further and said, what Campbell really said is, it is not what life means to me, but what I mean to life. That, to me, is really where people need to focus. That's the North Star. What do you mean, or what do you want to mean to life? And I think it links, in my mind, directly to Frankl's work in terms of finding meaning in your life, finding bliss. So while people are running around, I was there, man. I remember, I remember the days of Haight-Ashbury in the '60s when people were going to San Francisco trying to find themselves. And now people go, well, you know what? I found myself and I was here all the time. And so for me, that is this notion that,
Rare.
yeah, hey, you know what? What do I mean? What do I want to mean in life? And I think that connects directly to your perception of what is it that you are in the minds and the perception of other people, the true essence, if you will, of brand.
And John,
I'll let you have the last word, and then we're going to wrap up. Go ahead.
the book I read every morning says we're here for two reasons. One is to share love, and the other is to praise God. And everything else is man-made. And if we don't get these two right, we got to go back to share love again and get that right. So everybody shares love in different ways. You share love these days by doing your podcast and lifting up those common challenges, those common problems, those common, needs. I share love by helping people define in language a brand so that it comes to life, so they can accelerate their impacts in the world. And by doing that thousands and thousands of times over, I get to make a huge ripple effect on the world. But I also share love by cooking. I share love by playing violin, by speaking languages. I'm speaking at our church tonight, doing a Bible study. It's like I share love a lot of ways. Everybody shares love different ways. You're absolutely in the right place, focused on meaning and Viktor Frankl and the vision. Man with vision thrives. Man without vision perishes. It's biblical wisdom, and we get to pay attention to it. So follow what's in your heart. Ask your heart, show me one I really want to impact, and I know I really can. And then do it again and again. Have a handful. Write down the impacts. Start there. Okay? It will help put you on that path to purpose, path to meaning, path to significant. Your work will no longer be work. It will be love. And when work is love, it's not work. And so we all get to redefine the future of work for ourselves by focusing inward and asking ourselves what impacts we clearly want to make. You could be an employee in a big corporation. If the impact you want to make is to help the younger people have a clear path to knowing who they are, great, do that. You're in HR, you're in factory management, doesn't matter. You decide the impacts and focus on those impacts, and you're in your sweet spot. You're sharing love. It doesn't get better than that.
No.
Start in your heart and speak from your heart. Don't let anybody, don't do something that you think you have to do because somebody says that's, the way it is. We're all here for a reason, and you'll find it inside.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where it has to be found. It has to be found inside, finding yourself. You have to find your own sense of where you want to make an impact. In any case, Rich, this has been a great conversation, and I truly appreciate your time today on the podcast. I wish you and your family good health and great success in the future. Thank you so very much for your time.
Very welcome. I look forward to future meetings, John. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. This is Dr. John Dentico. Remember, meaning is the new money, but it requires building the structures that deliver it. If today's conversation challenged your thinking or gave you a framework worth implementing, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit throttleupleadership.com for more resources. Until next time, keep throttling up and keep the people at the center of everything you do.